many different things about that, but let me share a little bit from where I come from, because I come from deep shutdown, deep disembodiment and numbness for not only my body and my nervous system, but also my emotions and my feelings. So I definitely come from a place of from years in my life that I can recall as something like a dark black hole. And it is, I could say, my modern definition of hell, not sensing anymore anything about myself, and by that having lost contact to the intensity and the aliveness. So getting back to intensity, to aliveness, there is one way that truly, truly worked for me, even though that's a collective term. This is embodiment. It is stopping our disembodiment from this very moment. It is not stopping talking about it, but even when I'm talking about trauma, I might be using my words in order to move my energy. What works in terms of moving beyond trauma? Move. It's not running away. It's not looking away. It's a kind of moving that I would describe as melting the frozen fields inside. And there are so many ingredients that can make that easier for you. I think one ingredient is what we already have at the moment, which is a community around that. I can't stretch that enough. As long as I have been trapped in my self-hatred, in my I do not get along, but everybody else does. I am wrong and everybody else is right. I had no chance because I provided such an unsafe setting for my nervous system that I looked at myself from the perspective of being a problem. So when you are suffering from any kind of trauma symptom from your past, a subtle one, a big one, thousands of big ones, it is you suffering from trauma symptoms because you are on track, because you are healthy, because your nervous system still tries to figure out a way how to manage the inner and the outer world in contact. It's not because you are a problem, it's because you are not a problem. So I think this shift, I'm also super curious how this lands for you, Mark, or what you want to throw in. But this shift was a huge shift. And it wasn't me telling myself that I'm right. It was me experiencing the energy in my nervous system. And the very basic thing is sensing my sensations and moving in my whole body. And we can go into depth, we can go into other aspects, but that's the basic prayer that I wake up with. It is, let me sense the here and now by sensing my body. Yeah.
I love you, Ilan. I could just listen to you all day. So I find you soothing just listening to you. But I'm with you on this. I did a session yesterday on called The One Thing That Works. And I said, on the one hand, the one thing that works is whatever works. However, and if anyone tells you their one method is the way, like when we kind of sell your product, the sort of cheap one we're selling for people, I'll say, look, this is one way. There are many great teachers, there's many things, like David Baselli's here, there's all these different things. This is one way. But there's something that all the ways have in common that worked, and this is this kind, calibrated coming back to the body. This is what, in one way or another, they have in common, whatever the method is.
Because what I also met as incredibly healing, or found as incredibly healing in my own healing journey, which of course keeps going on, nobody is healed or through or knows it or has figured it out, is I was expecting in the beginning, I'm healing because I need healing. And the world around is waiting in a healed state. And that's not the case. We are living in a traumatized and traumatizing culture altogether. So it's very, very important to meet your essence underneath of cultural conditioning, regardless of the concrete country or continent that you are listening from at the moment. And this diving underneath of your conditioning, diving underneath of your culture, of the transgenerational and collective trauma layers of your very nation and culture, all of that comes down to the body. The body is this is the treasure box. This is the the source. This is the fountain of remembrance of what has been there in the very first place. And I think when we get stuck in our head, which method to follow? Does it work? And I'm just too stupid to get it. Which guru to follow, etc. When we are so busy in our head, it is because we are not fixing in the first step our basic trust into our own nervous system. But this is the highway, and that is the best insurance against becoming dependent on something from the outer world. So in that way also, let me put it into other words, taking pride in your wounding, because the world around is wounded. And maybe, or I could say even for sure, more wounded than you, because most of the culture is a running away, is a looking away from the own wounding. And if you are turning around and facing the past and facing the shadow, it doesn't open up a happy past. It opens up a bright future. And that, I think, is something that we can use a lot from. Yeah.
And there's a wonderful good news in this in a way, which is almost like the hardest thing is coming here. The hardest thing is opening up that first Peter Levine book or Gabor Mate book, or you know, video from Ilan online. That's because it's like, that's like saying, hey, there's a problem. Yeah. Right? In coaching, we call it a declaration of incompetence. It's kind of a harsh phrase, but it's, and most of the culture doesn't want to do that. Yeah. Most of the cultures, I'm fine, drinking, injecting, TV, porn, whatever. I'm fine. And we're not in a normal world. You know, we're in a fucked up world. Let's be honest. And it's like, that's the context we need to heal and grow in. And I think some of it's for others in a way, right? Like be an example of that. That's motivating. Be an example of that. And you're not going to get normal. Don't worry.
Something better. Woo-hoo!
Yeah, this is like good news, right? Like I thought, okay, if I heal, I'm going to get normal. I'm going to be like normal people and not have all these issues. And then I looked at Paul Linden and Patricia and Lan and people like that and just went, well, they're not normal. They're crazy. They're weird, but in a lovely, wonderful way. They seem happy and functional as well. So I think does that relieve you, the idea of not having to be normal as part of this? For me, it's like, no, normal's not a place to aim.
I like admitting it. Yeah, lots of self-care. Yeah. Yeah, you can, of course, share in the chat. Does it relieve you that it's not about being normal? Quite the opposite. I mean, stay stuck in trauma layers if you want to be just functioning in life. I could define our normal way of functioning as a subconscious survival mode, which provides us a pseudo sense of safety, but it's not a deep, restful sleep. It doesn't carry any true self-love and self-appreciation in itself. So I think us overcoming the illusion that life would be about becoming normal, this is a huge step in healing. And another thing that you say, Mark, is really, I approached my own healing journey as I say, my own healing journey. It's Ilan has to figure out her hypersensitivity, sexual trauma stuff. It's like, congratulations, I have to do my private hobby. And then I realized, wow, I'm not exceptional. The only exceptional thing around people who are into trauma healing is they have the resources and to some extent the circumstances of facing the stuff, but not they are the only ones running around with the stuff. So it's almost like the most private thing of therapy became the most public, official, globally relevant thing that I could ever contribute to the era around. And to be honest, since I sense more, I also sense more of the suffering around, and that's not always fun and not always easy. But then having a kind of inner whole body movement, as I already said, instead of freezing because somebody else is suffering, that puts me into a state of empathy without collapsing. So it comes down again and again to appreciate what brought you here, because it's something in you that is incredibly strong, incredibly on point, and incredibly healthy.
A piece around self-appreciation for appreciating the pattern, right? So not the trauma event, but the trauma pattern, the trauma response, which was a healthy form of learning. which was, it's not a problem, it's a solution. And it comes with maybe another problem we need to work with. But everything is an act of self-love. All those trauma patterns, no matter how, and Ilan's been so helpful for me on this, just seeing them all as patterns of self-love, even if they look pretty unpleasant. I want to keep this in the body a little bit. So just a kind of couple of things to offer you while we're chatting away and doing our thing. Soothing, if you fancy a little bit of that, soothing stroke, kind of, we call this self-care pose.
Rub your hands, ladies and gentlemen, let's rub your hands. Woo! A little bit of warmth, a little bit of melting of frozen energy inside, maybe. Then for a moment, close your eyes. And then, as simple as that, put your right hand onto your left shoulder. Put your left hand onto your right shoulder. Easy. Just give yourself a hug. As simple as that. I don't ask you to feel overwhelming self-love. I ask you to sense your right hand onto your left shoulder, your left hand onto your right shoulder. Just a gesture. And stay with your eyes closed for a moment. And here's the trick around a gesture. For the body in this very moment, it's not a gesture. It's a proof that you have empathy with yourself and that you are onto your path of loving yourself more and more, as well as I am. Because at the end of the day, trauma healing is the sum of belief systems that you embody. It's not believing in your mind, it's believing by embodying it. If you sense that you hug yourself, you won't be able to hinder yourself over time from falling in love again with yourself. Super easy. Follow my words. Left hand lifted from your right shoulder. Put your left hand softly on your left closed eye. Right hand lifting. Put your right hand onto your right closed eye very softly. And just allow the frozen angles, maybe a little bit contracted eye muscles, to melt in the darkness. Allow this darkness to be this time a nourishing thing. I'm here, we are all here, you are so not alone. Allow the darkness to be something that soothes you. Inhale, exhale, listen to your breath. This is super simple. Relax your eye muscles, even relax the forehead, the neocortex behind the forehead. Simple, simple embodiment. Do not expect healing coming from this. That's it. Softly lifting your hands, relaxing, staying with your eyes closed, a few more breaths. Moving your neck. Opening your eyes. Stay for a moment in this slow pace. I will keep speaking slowly. Another thing that I learned from trauma healing, what truly works, is I knew I was traumatized. I knew I was highly traumatized on many layers. And then I waited for the big bang in my trauma healing. I waited for this very one breakthrough in my therapy session. And this very one breakthrough never came. What came instead was an everyday meeting in a very soft moment of slowing down, reconnecting to myself, opening my eyes again, listening to words again. What I'm talking about is my trauma healing, maybe your trauma healing as well, might come from a simple walk every day with different beautiful moments of slowing down and reconnecting to, here I am, sweetie, and I'm wounded and I'm healthy. And it's kind of sweet. My culture didn't tell me, but now I will figure it out how to love myself. And opening your eyes and going back to functioning again, going back to self-love. It's a breathing in and out. It's not waiting for another kind of overwhelm. Healing is regenerating. Healing isn't an overwhelm. Trauma is an overwhelm. Do not project the matrix of trauma onto the matrix of healing. It's the beginning of something new. It's not the repetition of the past. So to some extent, it's not more than that. It's just gathering, saying yes to what happened in a very embodied way, slowing down, not stretching that, not doing it perfectly, opening your eyes. Chatter in your mind again. Congratulations. Yeah, like for all of us. I interrupted your questions about embodiment, Mark, but I wanted to jump in.
We have a nice flow, I think. So it's okay to interrupt. Therapists are wrong. So how did people find that? I'd love to hear people. I certainly enjoyed it. If you want to put in the chat, how was that? Very soothing. And also, I've heard both you and Patricia land this idea, which is really profound to me, that often we try and heal our trauma with the style of our trauma.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, I'm super like yang, hyper aroused, a little bit aggressive. So I was like, right, I'm going to smash my trauma. I'm going to be the best at healing trauma. And it's like, okay, I realized eventually that wasn't the best strategy, you know. Oh, beautiful, inspiring, some nice comments. Yeah, I like Ilan stuff. For me, it's really practical as well as
nourishment of love.
I
want healing now, and I'm very impatient. There is a very interesting thing to that, Alison, that, correct me if I'm wrong, I learned also, hey, Ilan, be patient. But wow, I can't help it. I am not a patient person, period. There is something healthy in your impatience, Alison. It's not the kind of I'm not good enough. Okay, that's some kind of stuff. But there is also a sense of, I know so well inside that so much more aliveness is possible. I want that now. So even this impatience has a kind of healthy sense of self-love, of I deserve more. More is possible. And in that way, I think that's also something interesting that I've put together in this online training that we are offering here, Moving Beyond Trauma, is really working with your rage, with your anger, as a kind of energy of frequency that can work on your side. It's not destructive, it's not self-hatred, it's not blaming others, but it is this kind of, wow, I wanted more. I want more of that right now. And this kind of anger is a healing anger that we also associate with trauma healing as unleashing your superpowers inside. So that's just one footnote to, I think, where all of us can be encouraged, or many of us at least can be encouraged to step away from this good girl, good boy stuff in order to truly empower this. I'm impatient. Yes, I'm going for something. This is about something. I matter to myself. So in that way, in a healing, loving way with yourself, be impatient.
The question here, which I think relates really to your method, Ilan. So there's this sort of modern idea of triggers. So someone's saying, you know, how do I deal with triggers that appear in everyday life that remind us of our trauma?
Oh, love that question. Wow, couldn't be more perfect. Thank you so much. So let me quickly jump into my personal story, which was all about remembering my past and trying very hard to remember the past that I didn't remember anymore, which was kind of stressful. Another layer of stress in Ilan's life. So here is the super relevant thing that I also share in detail in the online course, Moving Beyond Trauma. Your past is present in the triggers in your here and now. There is no everyday routine. There is no superficial routine in your everyday business that you have to push to the side in order to focus on the deep stuff. The deep stuff is in the seemingly superficial stuff of your everyday triggers. The more your everyday triggers seem to be silly to your mind, the deeper they run into the landscape of your trauma system, of the trauma in your nervous system. So to some extent, I'm serious about that. Give it a try. Just focus with a lot of attention, a lot of breathing, whole body trembling, and self-love, no matter what, onto what triggers you today. And allow this trigger to be moving in your whole body. We are sharing so much around whole body shaking, which is just imitating what you would what you want to be doing all day long as a wild animal that you are inside anyway. And this kind of whole body movement, that moves trauma energy in your body. And the trauma energy in your body, it doesn't come from the nightmare last night. It comes from your everyday triggers. In that way, your greatest lover in trauma healing is your everyday business, especially where it pisses you off. Sorry to say, prove me that I'm wrong, that I'm still angry that I have this hard fate or destiny of I have to deal with this stuff in that way. To some extent, it was a great relief because it was, wow, I do not have several problems. I have one very problem showing up in every layer of my life.